I can't believe it when I really think about where it started and where I even come from, being from the islands, and fashion was it just became something to play with. It was fun. It was a way for me to express myself in different ways. It was daring, and I just fell into it. And
I love people. It's not the fashion. It's the people in fashion I love.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Brose here, and I'm back with a new video. Today we're going to be talking about analyzing the fashions of global singer Rihanna. Now, today is something new. As you can see, I got this headset, well, microphone, as you can see, because last video when I did a Little Kim one, it was like everything was decent but the audio. So I just want to make sure I give you guys quality. So I got this microphone, and if this microphone don't do, then hey, it is what it is. Psych, but we'll definitely, keep growing, keep trying different things. And also below, do you think I should show my face in these videos, or you think I should just do more so narrations? But let me know down below, because I would just switch it up and just scrap my portion, my face, and just do the narration. Now Rihanna is definitely like the biggest, I would definitely say her, and of course like Little Kim and stuff, are one of the biggest fashion icons in the music industry, or just in the industry really, period. Throughout her eras, between like each album, and how she was probably one of the first people to really change up her look during the eras, outside of like Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson, and so on and so forth, which I'll be doing videos on them very soon as well. Rihanna is undeniably a fashion icon. From her bold and fascinating fashions to her just changing the way how people wear their streetwear and influencing people like Kylie Jenner and a lot of the Kardashians to Lori Harvey and etc. etc. She knew how to blend high fashion pieces with low end pieces in streetwear. She pushed different boundaries with her hair, makeup, accessories, with just changing the landscape of what it's like to be a star and be a fashion icon at the same time. So just to give you a bit of a background on Rihanna, well, Robin Rihanna Fenty was born on February 20th in St. Michael's, Barbados. At a young age, she started expressing her liking to fashion in various ways. She loved dressing up, doing different things, wearing different outfits. She grew up, citing 80s punk, 90s supermodels, people like Madonna, Little Kim, Aaliyah, Tupac, and Bob Marley fashion. And you definitely could see that in her streetwear a lot. So let's start with Music of the Sun / A Girl Like Me. Now I combine these two eras because I feel like they were very similar. They did have slight differences, of course, because she was a year older. So which I say this was from 2004 to 2006. Around this time, Rihanna was only in her early teenage years, mid-teenage years. She was like from 16 to like 18 during this era.
no, it doesn't matter.
Like when you're like, older lady and you're about to retire, it's like, what is it the thing you want to do?
Remember it as Rihanna. Remember it as being the artist from the Caribbean who came here and made it internationally. Just remember it as me. Because I'm true to my music, and I just want people to realize that and appreciate.
I would definitely define this style evolution as youthful and young. She rocked a lot of hip-hop inspired looks because she like mixing like feminine pieces, definitely like high crop top shirts where you can see her stomach, and like really low-rise jeans. I think during that time, that was kind of like the look. She was kind of following the trend. Rihanna's style was definitely approachable and very like around the way type of girl. Like, she was very relatable to the young teens at that time. It was just a combination of her being confident at a young age, and it just definitely mirrored her music and who she was. I definitely say Rihanna does an amazing job at mirroring her music to her fashion and her eras. During that time, it was big on having crop jackets were big, full bigger layers of, gypsy skirts, crop trousers, empire line dresses, top line tops, flat or wedges shoes was definitely big during that time, and tribal jewelry. A lot of people love wearing like sequins, newsboy, cowboy hats, wedge boots, metallic handbags, and various things of that nature. And then as we transition to, that's during like the music of the sun, but as she gets a little bit older, her style still was useful and had an innocence to it, but it still was kind of like she was getting older. She was transitioning to her later teen years, early adult years. It was a little bit more mature than music of the sun era, just showing growth and maturity in her age as she got older. Now, I want to talk about some of my favorite fashion looks by her during these two eras. So let's get to it. So I would definitely say let's start with this, the Teens People Listening Lounge, which was, I think this was her first red carpet ever, and this was kind of her signature style during this time. She definitely, when she wore in the Ponde Replay video, she wore a crop top with low-rise jeans. I feel like that was, again, a staple in her this era, and I think it just looked good and it was age appropriate, and she just did her thing. And I feel like she kind of recreated this look at the VMAs red carpet with the white pants and the white shirt, and then like the silver / glittery top. Not more so recreated, but she kind of, you know, followed that lead. Also in the SOS video, she wore the iconic green dress which was one of her most notable looks, and it was by a Dion von Furstenberg. So I think that was really dope on Rige. It was natural makeup, her hair, like natural hair, and it was just a highlight. I think those two videos were mostly showcase her style and staple during the era compared to like Unfaithful or We Ride, you know, because they didn't really show that much fashion. I liked when she wore this Frankie Morello jumpsuit. I feel like it was definitely age appropriate. The color looked great on her skin. And plus, by the time, she didn't have that much access to fashion like she does now, or even in this next era. Dope to see her in that space. She was definitely working with what she had. And then during this era, she loved Zach Posen. They kind of just went together. She looked really good in his dresses, from when she wore the silver dress at the Fashion rock concert, or when she wore, I think this is one a notable look as well that people kind of remember her for, when she wore this low cut white dress at the Billboard Music Awards. Yeah. And then again, like her hair during this era, one thing I did mention, and like the makeup was of course natural, but her hair was, you know, brown trusses with some highlights. Most of the time it was wavy or curly, but sometimes she did go straight as well. Now let's talk about the good girl going bad era. So this era is definitely, I say, between the years of 2007 and 2008. Right now she's like 19 to 20 years old, just trying to figure out, you know, her life, adapting to her new stardom with, you know, having multiple top 10s, number 1s, and just being the new girl on the block. So with her newfound fame, she started to really take a liking to fashion, become like, I guess what you could say, a fashion maven now, and she would be just getting into her bag. Like, this is where you start to see Rihanna being the fashion icon we see today. Like, I would definitely say this is definitely like the foundation, or like the building blocks.
Like good girl gone bad, but it really, I just took the bad girl attitude of everything, and I just did everything my way. I didn't really consult with anybody. I just wanted to do everything the way I wanted to do it. I wanted to look what I wanted to look like. I wanted to dress and sound like what I wanted to sound like. I was just tired of that innocent image that I had.
During this time, in the release of this album, she started to work with a stylist named Mario Hanan, and then her aesthetic started to become a little bit more edgier, a little bit more dark, kind of like, I wouldn't say punk or anything like that, but on that line, or on that realm, like riding that edge. Definitely during the promotion, you could see she rocked a lot of different hair. She would wear, like, you know, get into her bag wearing dark blazers, Balenciaga shoes. Also, a notable thing in this era, she kind of did her first fashion campaign when she became the face of UNICEF and Gucci back in 2008. She started speaking at different events and appearing on, you know, different red carpets for the events, and just doing, you know, different charitable works, but she was still partnering with the big fashion brand like Gucci, which was something she never did before. Definitely some notable things during this era that I definitely analyzed and noticed was she wore jet black hair, previously from her light brown with highlights hair back in 2006. So it was a lot going on in this era, so it's kind of like hard to kind of like chronologically break it up. I mean, chronologically she kind of did, like, you know, the asymmetrical bob, the black, and I think that's what she's mostly known for this era. Just that look alone was definitely, she put her image first, and she put who she was on the map, like right out the gate. So it was a sleek asymmetrical bob she wore during this era. She also did, and what I know is about Rihanna, she kind of does, and what you're going to see later in the video, she kind of does era within eras, meaning like she'll start with one look or hairstyle, and then like it kind of slowly transfers into a different one, and that kind of bridges the gap between the next era, which I like. So she started with, like, again, the bob, then a bob with the bang, and then she kind of did the pixie cut, the short haircut. Out of all those, I definitely say I like the asymmetrical, because I think that's what I kind of remember this era more so than anything of her wearing that. And it just was different. A lot of people wasn't really doing the jet black hair. She also would incorporate highlights of every colors, like blonde or colorful like purple, into it, just to give it, just to jazz it up, not to just give the same thing at different appearances and red carpets. Accessory wise, she definitely did the black gloves with certain looks, whether she was on or off stage. She definitely had the long earrings. She started to wear red lips in that era too. It wasn't her signature as it is now, but she started to wear that a lot, which I noticed. She definitely liked, you know, darker makeup at times when it was necessary. You know, she still do the natural look, but she also ventured out into that. She was wearing a lot of leather, and it was a little bit more sexier too, because I think she was growing in her grown womanhood, and she wanted to be a little bit more sexy and more like get that attention.
Very fine borderline of sexy and trashy. It has to be sexy but classy. And my don't is make sure that it's not too over the top or too exposing.
I also even know she started to add tattoos, started to experiment with different tattoos and things of that nature, and, you know, wear dark nail polish. I think, you know, from being on fashion campaigns during this era to attending the Met Gala, she was really starting to break down the door a little bit. Other noticeable things during this era I really liked was, you know, her magazine covers. I think she really started to get in there. She was on 17 magazine, Teen Vogue, the fashion magazine, Elle, In Style. So she was definitely like in publications and rocking those looks there. This era she started to wear, like I said, Balenciaga, Givenchy. She was just really in that. She was kind of rewriting her own fashion book in this era. She just kind of just made a bold statement out the gate, and I really like this era of hers. I would definitely say this was definitely be in my top 5, or, you know, because you have to respect where she started into where she was going in this era right now. Definitely say some definitely looks from this era. It's going to be a few. I love that she wore this Herve Leger dress at the Clive Davis party in 2007. You know, the iconic Roberto Cavalli kind of, which was similar to the SOS dress that she wore in SOS. Then, you know, her paper magazine wearing Hall Threat in 2007. Of course, in that same year, also, you can't forget about the umbrella look when that was kind of like her first video, just stepping out. Again, she gained so much mainstream success from that song as well. So it kind of shot her into a different stratosphere. You know, she had the white dress, which people love. Remember her to the black leotard. She was wearing this Armani Privé on a red carpet. I think that she looked amazing with that. When she walked her first fashion show at the D Squared show, that was definitely something that she didn't do before. Even from her performance looks was amazing. Like she wore at the Fashion Rocks concert, she wore this jeweled showgirl outfit with this big headpiece. It definitely fit the theme, but it was just like, wow, this is Rihanna. This is her growing into her young womanhood. And I just think I liked it. At that time I was young, so I mean I was seeing it, but now like looking back, it was like, wow, she was definitely taking risks, and it was so far gone from what she has done. And last but not least was just wearing the leather look at the AMAs. That was, I think people would still rock that today. I think she would even still rock that today, just in a different way, of course. So let's go into Rated R 2009. Now, I definitely would say like this one, it was a lot because it was a really defining moment. I feel like she was coming off of, this era was really tricky because she had that domestic violence situation with the previous partner. And, you know, she had a lot of things going on. And she was 21, so it was a lot of figuring out who she was as a artist, but who she, you know, also getting away from that limelight of who people thought they knew her to be.
But even more on this album, it's a big growth even since the last album. It's more personal, it's more honest, and it definitely opens up people to a lot that goes through my mind.
But I definitely think the fashion was, you know, she kept it similar. It was kind of, I would say it was a little bit similar, you know, just a little bit more punk and a little bit more edgy. Some people labeled it as androgynous, but I think people just throw that term around, but I labeled it more so like experimental. It was the shortcut. Now we know she did the shortcut with the Good Girl Gone Bad era, but I think she, you know, this one she had the blonde. It started black and blonde, and it slowly went to just blonde, mostly blonde. So I think that was really cool. People compared it to Grace Jones. I definitely could see if she drew a lot of inspiration from Grace Jones during this era. She was just definitely blending a lot of influences into this era on the I guess alternative side. It just became one of her most experimental eras and kind of like defining who she was and just going against kind of the grain and just evolving her identity as a young woman. And I think she wore a lot of like avant-garde pieces during this era as well, from like Elie Saab. Like she went extremely left, so like I feel like the Good Girl Going Bad era was definitely, she wanted to go there, but I think she really went there with this era, of course. And of course it was rated R and it kind of represented her music. Again, Rihanna loved to match her music with her style, and I think that's a genius thing that she does. Unlike artists who was her peers during that time, she started kind of her relationship with Vogue. That was like big. I think that was still one of her best shoots to date, and she just started to solidify her stamp in fashion. She was taking a, you know, flamboyant experimental risk. Magazine covers were dope. They were kind of like experimental because some were like still reminiscent of her old era, from W Magazine to Elle to Interview to ID. And you know I gotta talk about some of her, you know, things that she wore. So let's start with her wearing Alexandre Vautier couture in the Hard video. She was wearing couture in videos, like she wasn't doing that before. You know, the Dolce & Gabbana look at the Met Gala, I think her first one was cool, but this one was really like, oh, who is Rihanna? Like, she's one of them. The multiple looks at Fashion Week, like from Vivienne Westwood to Maison Margiela, it was just like back to back to back. Even people still reference her looks at Fashion Week from then on Twitter. They still remember this era of Rihanna, or they'd be like, I miss when people used to dress like this. And Rihanna was definitely like the staple of the 2009 and 2010s before she started the Loud era. Wearing, you know, when she wore Jeremy Scott in the Rude Boy video, like, and that video was dope because it was kind of like a step out of the grungy / darkness she was doing during the Rated R era. That was kind of like a palette cleanser in a way. So even when she went to Clive Davis party, she kind of looked ethereal. And then when she wore at the Grammy Awards, when she wore Elie Saab, I think that was definitely a poignant look.
Hair blonde for this album. We wanted a different look. And I kept hearing about blondes having more fun, so I said, hey, I want to have some fun. Let's dye my hair blonde.
So let's get into 2010s, like later, because Rihanna, she would do a year of an era, but like more like 8 months, like quarter 3 to quarter 4 into like quarter 1, quarter 2 of the other year. So she would definitely do that. So Loud was kind of like an OD to her younger years, I would say, back in 2005, 2006, because it was so prissy and girly, but it was just a new take on it because she dyed her hair red. So she released her 5th album, and it just became known for her iconic red and her bold red, you know, lips to match. It was very feminine and sultry, and she wore a lot of like brighter colors, like brighter hues, pastels. It was vibrant. It was kind of like approachable. People might deem it as. A lot of people just remember this look because it was so visually attracting. Like, people just had to look at it. Like she said in one of her interviews, it was red. It makes people look.
and liberating, you know. It's not a very quiet color, and it grabs a lot of attention, I have to say, whether it's positive or negative, but I love it. I don't know why, I just really like it.
It was very edgy. It was separating from rated R and Good Girl Going Bad, the dark era, and moving into like more of a light era too. She had toned down streetwear. It was eccentric performing outfits as well. She kind of was still getting more into fashion, of course doing Vogue again because they loved her. Glamour magazine, Rolling Stone, Cosmopolitan, and she also released during this time a photo book. Some notable looks from this era, I definitely would say, was definitely her Prada stripe faux fur and when she wore S&M. That's kind of reminds me of kind of like the Rude Boy video just a little bit. The AMA performance outfit, like that, everybody loved that performance about Rihanna. I think that kind of was like, oh, she really can perform. Also, from the matching red hair to the red Elisa dress, that Interview magazine where she was styled perfectly. Like, I think that was like a perfect thing she did. When she wore Christian Dior by Gian Galliano when she was performing, that dress. The Only Girl in the World video was definitely like a staple. Just the colors, the beautiful pinks, the reds, like color coordination. And you know, last but not least, when she wore the Jean Paul Gaultier gown and with the Christian Louboutin shoes.
Every time I made an album that says Good Girl Gone Bad, it's just been whatever was in my body at that moment, whatever I was feeling, whatever mood I was in, that's always what you'll get.
So let's talk about Talk That Talk. And I think this is like the first time I was really getting into Rihanna per se. When I was younger, I did like Rihanna, but like this is when I really got into Rihanna, and that's when I really got into music like that. So she started to work with Mel Ottenberg. I hope that I pronounced his name correctly, but yes, she started working with Mel. She kind of like had like a more of a partnership with others. I think she kind of used others before. They were kind of in and out. This era was like, I guess, where Bad Girl Riri kind of like came about for Instagram, and like, you know, she was on social media as Bad Girl Riri. You can see it in this era because it was like two eras. Like half the year she was like, it was kind of like 80s punk a little bit. Like it was a lot of streetwear, kind of embraced like that indie rebellious aesthetic. It wasn't as dark as Rated R and Good Girl Going Bad, but it wasn't as light as loud in Music of the Sun and Girl Like Me. It was kind of like in the middle. She wore a lot of pin curls, bandanas, bold lips, chains. The hair was kind of like reminiscent of her old era, so it was kind of like more youthful in a way. Definitely the street era was a mixture of grunge in the beginning, but during later in that era, going into Unapologetic, which we'll get to, it was 90s flair. Her hair again was a mixture of dark brown curly tretches, whether it was pinned up or laid down. And then she kind of went into the bleach blonde with bangs. It was definitely a contrast between the eras, like between this era, and I feel like this era was kind of quick for her too. Like it was like really, I feel like it was quicker than other ones, maybe because it was two different defying looks into one era. But I definitely say it's definitely one of my favorites because this is when I really got to know Rihanna. I would definitely say some notables in the beginning of the fashion era. We Found Love and You The One were definitely was the staple, even the album booklet. But then when you go into the other half of the era, when she was on Elle magazine with the blonde, bleach blonde, beautiful. And when she went to the Grammys in the Giorgio Armani dress, custom, by the way, because she was getting into customs during this time. She was having more access than ever before, of course. When she was at the Battleship premiere in that dark olive green dress with the bangs, or when she wore Stella McCartney at the special presentation, she looked beautiful in there, or rocking these thigh-high Louboutins during her streetwear. Like, she was looking good just on a regular day. Like, I think this is where she kind of redefined her streetwear, and she kind of set the map of turn your streetwear into a moment. Yeah, she did that in Good Girl Going Bad a little bit, but I feel like she was the blueprint for Tumblr. Like, if you was on Tumblr during that era, that time, Rihanna was, her streetwear was always on Tumblr. And then just wearing the burgundy pantsuit with the matching lipstick with her friend Melissa, I feel like that was a moment because it just looked good. Like, you know what I mean? It just looked good.
I'm getting into fashion a lot more really spearheading it with as a designer.
So let's get into the unapologetic era. Now this era kind of lasted longer than the other two because she kind of took a hiatus between unapologetic and anti, and I feel like it was long and she was able to rock a lot of things in this era. Again, Rihanna known for an era within era, so this will have a lot of like looks on it, so be prepared for me to talk a lot. She really set a lot of trends during this era. A lot of people loved the changing of the look. It was just boom, 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 boom. You just had to catch her when you can. From rocking the side cut with the black hair, from it being straight to it being wavy, to changing it to blonde, to the black pixie cut, to a bob, to a bust down. Like Rihanna gave a variety of hairstyles that a lot of people just couldn't keep up with. I think Rihanna during this time, you know, she saw a lot of people kind of like coming up, like, you know, like a Rita Ora or something like that, and they were comparing Rita Ora a lot to Rihanna during this, between 2012 and 2014. So she was kind of like, you know, I see them copying my style, you know, I gotta change it up. She see them rocking Chanel, so she proud of that. Y'all won't get that. So she went back to black during this era with the pixie cut, sometimes even a mohawk, but then, you know, black hair, you know, stuff like that. She was attending more fashion shows than ever. You know, she had the bob too, rocking dark and purple lipstick. She was very big in Chanel during this era, from the Pour It Up music video to, you know, performing as a Victoria fashion show. She wore like a lot of Chanel accessories to even streetwear. Even in this era, she kind of began to doing the style to rock. So she was definitely showcasing who she was fashionably. She also did her first collection during this era with River Island at the London Fashion Week. A lot of people had mixed reviews about that because it was risque, but I think it was true to herself. And you had a lot of critics saying things and being negative about who she was and her style at that time. Also, she was a style shapeshifter, switching it up between minimalist to maximalist. So she had a lot of looks in this era, and it's not, everything's not in chronological order, but I just want to get it out because there was just so many. She also did during this era snagging the creative director title with Puma, where she started multiple campaigns, and she had the Puma Creepers. Yeah, so she signed it in 2014, but she started to make waves of the Puma Creepers in the 2015-2016 era, which is like the anti-era, but later on. But let's get into some notable looks during this era. So we definitely have to start out with the Swarovski crystal moment.
I am wearing Adam Selman. The jewelry is by Paul Morelli and Jacob. This one is by Jacob. 230,000 Swarovski crystals. Ooh. We had 15 people working on this all week. 6 days it took them to make this complete, and they just made the durag for me last night.
I see. You're looking very sexy.
I would definitely say that's probably her most iconic look. I don't know, arguably. Also, again, the era within era, so from the makeup to the hairstyles to the style being elevated. Even her tattoos was innovative, from the hand tattoo to the tattoo under her breast. When she was leaving the studio, when she reconnected with her old partner and she wore this matching maroon fur with a dress, she looked amazing with that. Her Coachella looks on the stage and off the stage, when she was rolling a wheel on that guy's head, and those bedazzled shorts, that was a trend. That tour when she wore this Bob Marley dress by Adam Selman. You know, her Vogue covers, her Harper Bazaar. Those are some of my favorite magazine moments. She was on like a magazine cover like every month in this era. It seemed like her in the Fashion Killer video with A$AP Rocky when she had the mullet, Supreme, from the Supreme jersey to wearing a Tom Ford, her black and white dress. I love her streetwear. I can't stress that enough. When she wore this Joy Rich Paris ghetto jersey with some Alexander Wang boots. You know, we can't forget about Paris Fashion Week in 2014, where she put like the nail in the coffin from her hair to the bob, that with the bangs or the middle part. That's kind of like a staple. I feel like I would attribute that to how a lot of girls now to this day want to operate at Fashion Week, just with the multiple looks and just clear after clear after clear. Like, I'm telling you, like I said, the Pour It Up video, that was kind of iconic because a lot of people wore that outfit for Halloween. The many changes at the Grammys, like again, streetwear off the charts, was like from Chanel to Mary Karatzu. The British fashion awards with the oversized jacket, or when she wore Stella McCartney at the Met Gala and she was on the cover of Vogue with Beyonce. Like, they look beautiful. Or wearing a little yellow skin roll by Alexander Vautier, or when she went to the MAC event where she wore Alzora at the Rock Nation brunch, you know, or the Diamond Ball where she wore that Zach Posen. It's still memorable to this day. So, you know, and again, Glamour magazine, like, Rihanna was just all over the place, you know. So I think this was definitely a redefining moment for Rihanna and her stardom. So let's get into anti-era. I feel like this is when she was kind of like in her grown woman era, and I think this year was definitely from 2015 to 2017. I include the hiatus in the era too, because one thing about Rihanna, her stuff expands for like a long time of period, so she could drop an album and it still be at the top or still be played way years after. So I would definitely say she transitioned into her grown woman era. She was like in her late 20s, going to enter her early 30s. So, you know, her body was shifting in different ways. This is when she kind of changed her stylist from Mel to Jaleel. She wore a lot of pieces from Alexander McQueen to Stella McCartney again, Alexander Vautier, Roberto Cavalli, Dior, Jean Paul Gaultier, Gian Battista, Givenchy. Like, she was even pulling looks from Terry McGuire too. She had a lot of pieces from collector's items and avant-garde pieces. She was really in her fashion bag this era, so she was teaming up with like Stance. It was just kind of like an iconic line of socks. In 2015, Dior tapped her as the first black ambassador, making her the star of the Secret Garden ad campaign for Dior. She also, you know, after getting signed with Puma, she did a more high-wear footwear. She had the Creepers, but then she also did Manolo Blahniks. She did a stint with them as well. And also in 2016, in the release of her album, which would cement her as an icon in music, but it kind of also did in fashion too, because she was doing a lot of like campaigns and collaborations as well, and being on the covers of different magazines, and like, you know, music and fashion goes hand in hand, so she was kind of rolling both simultaneously. Sorry, guys, I have braces, so it's kind of hard to say certain words, but it just sparking a lot of buzz. She was able to do high-end stuff, but also do athleisure wear and be successful with Puma, with the Creepers, which sold out various times. You know, during this era, she kind of loved a lot of oversized pieces. Once again, she was redefining fashion in a way that she wanted to. Definitely was experimenting with makeup and, you know, different looks, hair colors, different hairstyles. She was, you know, incorporating like braids and like different like natural looks as well. I definitely say a lot of younger artists could pull from this, like a Billie Eilish, or like different like people who came up after her. She unveiled some other notable fashion moments during this era. She unveiled her first designs of Dior frames that range from $840 to like upwards to $2,000. Yeah, so she was taking her own fashion endeavors, like with Fenty Beauty, very critically acclaimed. She was definitely one of the first to do the 40 shades of diverse skin hues and skin complexions. She was definitely representing who she was and wanted to be very inclusive. Unlike other makeup brands and just other brands in general, she made sure she looked out for all shades, because it kind of represented her as a black woman, but also her fan base, which is very broad, and it raked in almost $500 million in sales in the first year. So I think that was definitely amazing for Brie. She also worked with the Giant jewelry line in 2017 with Chopard, where she launched at the Cannes Film Festival. She had her own collection called Rihanna Loves Chopard. So let's talk about some notable moments. She had a lot of big moments in fashion with deals and doing her own lines, but she also, let's not forget, she put that shit on. So it's not going to be in chronological order, but we're going to talk about just the different moments in there. So when she wore the Jean Baptiste Haute Couture dress, I think that was just like, she looked like a princess. She was just like, it was just really minimal makeup. You had to get into her beauty more so. And then she kind of switched it up when she wore the oversized Maison Margiela pantsuit to perform 4 or 5 seconds with Paul McCartney and Kanye West. Then she went proper and prim at the Dior Cruise 2015 fashion show. And we can't forget, like, I don't even have to explain that. Like, that was just probably the best Met Gala of hers, but probably of anybody's really. Like, I don't know who can argue with that. You know, she during this era, she kind of did the ginger hair look for a little bit, where she wore Giorgio Armani at the BET Awards to promote "Bitch Better Have My Money," or she wearing Rosemarie in the Nidia video with the black bob and the neon baby blue robe with nothing under it, just put some panties. And I was like, whoa, you know, you look good. When she performed "Love on the Brain," wore that Terry Mugler like, which was her best performance vocally, by the way. Even at the VMAs, where she wore different outfits to showcase her music styles and her diversity. You know, when the first with the pink Hood by Air bodysuit with a matching buckle upskirt and red shoes to match. Then she wore trousers with fishnets and a fur-lined bra and black pumps and a do-rag over her hair. Then she had, you know, they had the black bodysuit with the shoulder pads and the thigh-high boots and a fur. And then lastly, she kind of did the Alexander Vautier collar gown with the garment belt. Or when she wore this Princess Diana tee filled with the 9 to 5 Manolo Blahnik high boots. Like, that was iconic. You know, those were known for the Rihanna boots. And then don't forget the mini lock era, where she wore her faux locks. And she had that era, and I think she looked amazing with those. And like I said before, the Cannes look was amazing too.
Avant-garde in your world, music and style.
I love art, and I think it's such a free range of expression, and you can do whatever you want within that space. It just gives you that freedom, that space to be whatever you want, however you want.
Yes.
We then get into 2018 in her next era, which is kind of like her more grown-up era compared to before. She didn't have an album to promote. She was just taking time for herself, but still focusing on her brands too. She just found a unique way to stand out by herself, and she had not too many celebrity sightings. This time, every sighting was an opportunity to remind the world of her presence, but it was very calculated. I think she wanted to really focus on her brand, and she wanted to take a step back from music, because she was just putting out album after album after album. So and then touring on top of that, and then doing all these other campaigns. So she was out here working. So I think she wanted to take this time to really like slow down a little bit, but focus on other endeavors other than music. I would definitely say her style during this era was like signature of her, you know, radiant street style, but it was a mixture of, you know, light colors, dark colors. It was kind of like all her eras into one. I think she just had the freedom to do what she wanted to do every day. In 2018, she launched Savage X Fenty, which is a lingerie line which embraced all body shapes. It was very diverse, kind of similar to Fenty Beauty. It's also during this time she debuted a new luxury label called Fenty, where she presented at Paris, which was distributed through LVMH, and it was a unique opportunity to develop a fashion house. She was like the first black woman, I think, to get that, and you know, that's big in the fashion industry during that.
First started off with being the endorser of brands and just lending my likeness and my face to fashion brands, and then
so, it had clothing, footwear. It was very broad, but unfortunately she just wasn't seeing the results that she wanted to, so they ended up putting a pause on it, which is fine, because sometimes you need to take a step back and focus on other things. So she focused on like her successful brand like Fenty Beauty and, you know, Savage X Fenty. You know, some looks during this era was definitely where she was at the Met Gala being the co-chair wearing Maison Margiela, or when she was in a full lace catsuit at the Diamond Ball, when she was at the Louis Vuitton fashion show. She did the September British Vogue. That was beautiful. When she was in Harper Bazaar in Vogue again. And when she wore custom Fenty at the BET Awards. That was more of a shorter era for Rihanna. So now we're starting the motherhood era / R9 question mark.
Fashion it.
It's gonna sound hypocritical, but because I did so much in my life. I had my nipples out, I had my panties out, but now those are the things, like, I guess as a mom, and like, it's things that I just feel like I would never do, or I'm just like, oh my God, I really did that? Nips out.
And her relationship with A$AP Rocky. So this is from 2021. I would definitely say onward. So, you know, Rihanna stands as a fashion icon at this time. She's like almost 20 years in the game. She's super influential. Her impact is worldly. So this is kind of like her smell her flowers era. So she started to date A$AP Rocky, and they kind of began to give us like coordinated looks. It was synchronized yet distinct. Like, it showcased showcase what a couple could be, both a fashion couple could be by coordinating the different outfits. They weren't just wearing clothes, they were like making moments together, and it kind of like set the blueprint of like other fashion couples too that may enter in the game in later years. I think those two are kind of like a match made because they're both super big into fashion, but you know, they're musicians as well. I think this era kind of like marked her personal style, and then of course in this era she got pregnant twice. So when it came to maternity fashion, she kind of like went the other route.
Your fashion show, I love it.
I'm trying to enjoy it as much as I could, and fashion is one of my favorite things. So, you know, redefining what it means to even be pregnant and maternal, you know, it always, it can get uncomfortable at times. So, you know, you can dress the part and pretend.
She infused a lot of like high fashion pieces and daring outfits showcasing her stomach, and you know, being that trendsetter and not following the norms of covering up your stomach. No, she was dressing like she was before. I think even like more revealing during this era of pregnancy. So a lot of her fashion statements during this era was during her pregnancy. Also, when she was pregnant, she took the lead in Pharrell's Louis Vuitton campaign in the menswear. And she became the new face of the legendary Dior fragrance that was, you know, previously Theron, but now she is the face. And she always had a good relationship with Dior, so it just really made sense for her to do that. But I want to talk about some notable fashion looks I loved. And a lot of it might be going to be her pregnancy looks, but you know, she did her thing. So it was when she was spotted in a brown leather shearling coat while filming a music video with her boyfriend A$AP Rocky. I think she looked amazing there in the video. And when she wore that pink fur coat from Louis Vuitton spring menswear designed by the late Virgil Abloh. Also in her early pregnancy, she wore this orange halter slip dress by Bottega. Again, her streetwear was on point. Like at the Savage X Fenty launch in LA, she wore Roberto Cavalli, or wearing a Yves Saint Laurent Fox fur stole while heading to dinner in Paris. That was fire. Her maternity shoot in Vogue, like where she wore all sorts of designers from Rick Owen to other designers, or wearing a black jacquard skirt suit at the Schiaparelli Spring 2024 fashion show, or when she wore the purple faux Gucci coat with a crop vinyl top at Gucci's Fall 2023 show in Milan, and when she wore the sheer lingerie inspired Christian Dior ready to wear fall in 2023 in Paris when she was pregnant. We can't forget the Super Bowl where she wore a red Alaya puffer over a glossy red leather corset and a corset jumpsuit. You know, people still recreate that now to this day on TikTok or Instagram. When she went to the Golden Globe Awards, where she wore Schiaparelli Haute Couture, and in New York where she wore this fur ensemble with leather skirt and strappy heels with her A$AP Rocky going. Like, where were they going wearing that in New York? Like, that's fire to me when you could just dress like that on a regular day. We're still in 2024, so, you know, it's still more outfits to come by Ree. But someone that I thought some notable looks during this era was definitely wearing Alaya at New York Fashion Week appearances. And then when she went to A$AP Rocky's debut Paris Fashion Week show, and wearing a white tank mini dress and a carp jacket. I thought those were two dope ones. So she's kind of in like, you know, post-pregnancy era, but she still looks good. She's still rocking it. She's still doing her thing. And also, I can't forget, I'm sorry, when she wore the pink hair, like that was like, I was like, what? Like, I never seen Rihanna with colorful hair, like a full colorful hair like that. I mean, of course, the red and the dark auburn orange, but pink, like a pastel pink, was crazy. I want to see more of that from her this era. And of course, you know, Interview Magazine, Perfect Magazine, and Vogue, like, you know, Rihanna's always going to kill a cover. But I just want to say shout out to Rihanna, shout out to her just being true to herself. She's a visionary, she's an icon, she is truly the moment, and I just can't wait to where she takes this up, and I could do a part 2, wherever I split it up, part 2 or part 3 of this video, and over the next few years. So shout out to Rihanna. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let me know what you think down below. What you think was Rihanna's best videos or outfits. And I'll see you guys soon.
In a really small island, and I didn't have a lot of access to fashion. But as far as I could remember, fashion has always been my defense mechanism. Even as a child, I remember thinking, she could beat me, but she cannot beat my outfit.